G'day, Michael here. Um, this video is to just explain a printhead design that I've made. This is it, obviously in Slicer in the model stage. Now it looks fairly complex, and I guess it is. The part itself's complex, but for a 3D printer it's no more complicated than a square block to print. Now the reason why this came about is I've tried to make a compact, simple, lightweight printhead to minimise the amount of mass that's accelerating backwards and forwards. Now the original i3 design that I've got here, it's a G-Tech i3, had the extruder mode actually on the on the X assembly. Now I've set it up for a Bowden, but I've taken a liking to using a 0.6mm tip and a Volcano printhead. Now I'll show the physical object shortly, but for the moment this is the print design, and this space here is designed for a centrifugal blower, and it's designed for two centrifugal blowers, one on either side, this side and that side. This is the bottom here on the left, on the right it's the top, but the cooling fan for the actual on the top side above the heat break is actually set up to be screwed on the back of the assembly so as to pull air through this whole block to cool the back end of the hot end. And the Volcano hot end part is in this space here, so it's all optimized for that kind of size. This is, I think, about the third or fourth iteration of this. That lump on the side is just hit the limit switches, the x-axis limit switch. There's a screw hole here which is intended to be tapped out with a 3mm tap. I put these screw holes in the side here, which again can be tapped out, or you could use a wood screw or something like that to hold the fans in. But I found it just produces a nice press fit. Anyway, that's enough of this screen capture. I'll move to print settings, I suppose would be important. Now all I wanted to do was have a couple of perimeters, just enough to hold threads and things like that. I've made the infill on mine 25%. It probably could go down to 15%, but I like a little bit of meat when I have to expect the parts to hold against some tension, such as threads and that kind of thing. The top and bottom layers, I always have a few, like 4 layers on the top, just make sure the layers are complete. These things are trying to eliminate the stringing. I'm using PETG, as you can see here, and so the stringing is quite it's a bit of a nuisance, but it's nothing that doesn't come off very easily. In any case, well, I guess that's it. Now onto the real thing. Okay, so this is, well, it's actually a dud print. It peeled away from the bed, but still lets me show you the vital organs, what it takes to go together. Now this is printed out of PETG. You could use ABS, you could even use PLA for all that mattered. The only area of heat is around here where the Volcano hot end is. Now you'll need obviously bearings. Now what I've got is these guys to show you relative to the ruler. What I've got, they're about, I'm going to call that 24mm long, they're 15mm diameter, 8mm centre hole for the 8mm shafts that you have on a typical cruiser design. Okay, so you need 4 of those. The cooling fans are these centrifugal blowers. See what they are. And they actually just press fit in. Now you may need to tickle something here or there with a file to make sure that it slides in. That's fairly tight. I could probably force that in, but yeah, in any case, take a bit of care so you don't break anything. Now if you look down here, you've got the cowls on the side. Once that blower is pressed in place, it blows air down to print the actual print area. So you need to probably insulate the hot end, so you're not just knocking heat out of the hot end. Some not PTFE, the Captain tape, and the typical, I think it's ceramic fibre type stuff you see on hot ends. It's nothing sort of new. Okay, now on the top, obviously you've got that hole for the back end, or the kind of the upper end of the hot end. With the bearings, when you push them in, use something like a vise that you can provide steady pressure, because if you try and knock them in with a hammer, you're likely to shatter something. Also, make sure you've got a nice clearance. If you need to tighten them up, there's a couple of things you could do. I mean, potentially you could even glue them in, but you could also tweak your XY compensation on your slicing package if they're a bit tight, if they're a bit loose, or actually either way. But you can also ream them out if you're really stuck. Yeah. In any case, I found this worked quite well the way it is for what I'm doing. And you need to potentially either tap out that, I think that's the nicest way, tap that out with a 3mm tap and use a 3mm screw. That's what I've done. For the cooling fan that actually cools the printhead, you fix it on in such a way that the air is pulled through and out of the unit. So you fix it on with some wood screws. Careful not to choose excessively long screws because that bearing is not far from the length of where the screws go out. It's fairly tight. Alright. Now, the only thing that's sort of tricky when you're assembling this, I'll get this fan back out of the road. The fans are easy as, but what you have, I'll actually go on the back side here, the belt obviously needs to be held somehow, and just so the camera can see it, I've got this yellow cable tie. It doesn't even need to be particularly tight on the belt. Let me just pull it out. So just put that there. It's there to occupy some space to make a lump. That's all it's there for. So you put the belt around it. I don't know if that shows up. Maybe on length there. And then I find that I have to hold that with a pair of tweezers. So I'll just get my tweezers handy. So that's held with a pair of tweezers. Pull that back into the slot. And Bob's your uncle. There's that part mounted nicely. And looking at it sort of on the machine, this is the side that faces you and it's on the machine. This side is where the motor is. It wraps through, comes around the other end, around the sort of tensioning pulley, which then has to be brought back through on this other end the same. I'm not going to cut this belt because it's a longer piece and I want to use it for an XY, Core XY machine. But yeah, that's the only thing that's a little bit tricky on this. It's just that. But again, you don't really need to make the cable tie tight. It doesn't matter that it's a little bit loose. In fact, it means that if you need to service it and you want to adjust the length of the belt, you can do that without having to waste your cable tie. Yeah, so let's have a look at it working in the machine. Okay, so here it is in the machine. You see the Volcano hot end. It's not actually running cooling. I've got it on auto, so I'm not fussing about it. It's very easy to underestimate how quick this is actually printing. Now, it's been out for 45 minutes. In 45 minutes, you'd only see, well, much less of this with a 0.4mm tip. I think probably maybe half this if you're lucky. Having a smaller diameter tip is slower on a lot of fronts. You've got to do more tracks to get a given wall thickness, and you've got to do more layers. So focus. So it's really easy to underestimate how fast these 0.6mm tips are compared to the 0.4. It does cost you a bit of resolution, but for a lot of things that I'm doing, because I'm tending to do like structural parts, the finish is adequate. And certainly the penalty in the finish is not as great as the increase in speed out of the machines. Anyway, so you can see the cooling pulls through from front focus, and we've got the blowers on the side, the bearings. You can see how the belts work. It's working rather well. You can almost see the fan on the back there. Yeah, you can just see the fan on the back. Well, I guess that's really about it. There's not much more to say. It's pretty much self-explanatory, I would think. Well, that's it from me. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, ask a question, leave a comment. Bye for now.